So the right ventricle goes to pulmonary circulation through the pulmonary trunk and the pulmonary arteries. Well, guess what? That's still O2 poor. CO2 rich. And now it's, but here, look, check it out now. Now I screw you up. Because it was nutrient poor when it came into the right atria, right? But now it's nutrient rich when it goes to the pulmonary arteries. Oh, because remember right here in the right atria, underneath, the inferior vena cava, the liver adds nutrients. So nutrients get added to the right atria. The inferior vena cava to right atria. So let's do it this way. To the vein, which would be the inferior vena cava, and then into the right atria. Okay? You follow? So once you enter into the right atria now you're nutrient rich, O2 poor, CO2 rich, right ventricle kicks it out, it's going through the pulmonary arteries, pulmonary trunk, pulmonary arteries, to the pulmonary circulation. Well, the job of the pulmonary circulation for the lungs is to oxygenate that blood. Everybody follow? Yeah? So now, coming out the other end from the pulmonary veins, you have what? O2 rich, nutrient rich, CO2 poor blood. Everybody got me? O2 rich, nutrient rich. Why are you shaking your head?
Because I'm just trying to fit it.
You could always try your best, and then you go look at the video and you can rewrite it again. The more you rewrite it, the more it'll stick. So it's okay if you write it wrong and you write it again, you need another third sheet, go for it. All right? You take a whole sheet if you got to. Right? So O2 rich, nutrient rich, and CO2 poor. Okay? And CO2 poor. And that's going to a pulmonary vein. So veins go to the heart. Right? Veins go to the heart. So where's the other pump? Right here. Left atria. Right? Left atria will lead to the left ventricle. And the left ventricle's job is to pump O2 rich, nutrient rich, CO2 poor blood, yes, to systemic circulation. So there's two separate pumps. Oh no, there's not. There's three. What's the third? What's the third pump? There's two associated with the heart. There's three associated with the cardiovascular system. What happens when I'm exercising? Skeletal muscle contracts. Yeah? Skeletal muscle contracts. Veins got one-way check valves. We're going to squeeze on the veins. Squeeze on the veins, we get more blood back to the right atria of the heart. So the skeletal muscle pump is the third muscle pump for the cardiovascular system. So exercise will improve overall cardiac output. I said it. You want to improve your cardiac output, you got to do exercise. All right? You can't think about exercise, you got to actually do exercise to improve cardiac output. All right? You can't go to the gym, you actually have to go and work out at the gym, right? Those of you who go to the gym, I know who you are. All right? You tell me by just telling me, I went to the gym today. I know you didn't work out.
Is it pulmonary arteries or pulmonary arteries? On top of right ventricle.
Pulmonary arteries. P-O-M-L. Yeah, I'm just writing real fast and crappy. I apologize. Pulmonary arteries. Okay?
First to the right.
Yes.
Is the first pump, the left one is the second, and the muscles are the third.
That's right. So when you're talking about the cardiovascular system, and you want to talk about the actual pumps themselves, there's three pumps. There's the right pump, which brings systemic to pulmonary. And then there's left pump, which takes pulmonary to systemic. Then there's skeletal muscle pump, which really only affects the veins. But that will, by squeezing on the veins, and since the veins have one-way check valves, everybody understand me? Guys, veins have one-way check valves. 60% of blood sits in reservoirs within veins because we have more veins than we have arteries. The architecture of the artery and the arterial, which is the systemic side, when we're talking about the arterial system off of the left ventricle, it starts with what? What's the structure? What's the structure of the heart? Okay, so 4 chambers.
Atrium, left atrium.
I got my inferior vena cava, my IVC. Right? So that makes this my right atria. Then I got my superior vena cava. That's draining. Then I go into my right ventricle and I come out my pulmonary trunk, right? So pulmonary trunk comes out like this to lungs. All right? Then it comes back into the right atrium through arteries. Right? Pulmonary veins, so I apologize. Pulmonary arteries traveling out. Pulmonary veins bring it back in. I go into my left atrium, I go into my left ventricle. This is my right ventricle. My left ventricle has its own output, which is the aorta kind of hidden. They actually share the same root because they're actually one big blood vessel in embryological development. And these cells, called the neural crest cells that help to create the neural tube, those neural crest cells that help to rise to all peripheral sensory nerves, they migrate into this one tube and septate it and twist it. That's where we can get transposition of the great vessels. Did everybody hear me? Because if I don't get that twisting, then I can have my aorta on the wrong side of the heart. Instead of it being on the left ventricle, it's on the right ventricle, and then the pulmonary trunk is on the left ventricle. Now, that's all screwed up. So what we got to do? Switch them up. We got to kill the baby and bring it back to life. Or her back to life. And swap the vessels out, because that's not compatible with life. Everybody follow? You got other kids who are born with the heart is reflected. So instead of it being on this side, it's actually on this side. And that has no physiological impact on them whatsoever. It doesn't matter. Okay? You can have, because the guys, each one of these, something special, man. And like I said, in chapter 4, back in 2085, I told students, I don't agree with how the book describes the requirement for tissues, because the reality is that when we talk about embryologically, you better be talking about this simple squamous epithelium with a basement membrane, making a simple capillary tube for the purpose of providing the necessary oxygen and nutrients from mother to fetus. Yes?
Blood goes from the veins to the liver first, and then it goes to the...
No, careful. The liver is getting it from small intestine and large intestine. So this is coming from, remember, intestines are going small and large intestine. So small and large intestine, they're draining into the liver. Then it goes into inferior vena cava, and then into the right atrium. Okay, that's called the hepatic port. This right here, that arrow right there is referred to as the hepatic portal vein. And it's specifically going into the inferior vena cava. So here's the model. Here's the model. There's my heart right here. Look at it. Not bad. That's your apex. Left and right ventricles, all right? So there's your apex, left and right ventricles, yeah? Pulmonary trunk. See right behind it? Aorta. Switch those up. Oh, I can't have that. Boom, turn them around. I can have problems with, everybody see that there's a septum between the two atria? Well, there's a hole there, and that's normal. Because why? Because when we're in fetus and when we're developing in fetus, we're not using our lungs. So do we want blood going to the lungs for the purpose of being oxygenated? No. So check it out now. Check it out. in embryological development, we're not using our lungs. So pulmonary circulation, nix that. We're going to deviate blood from the right atria to the left atria. Through what? Through the foramen ovale. The foramen ovale. Fetal I just went from adult circulation to fetal circulation. In adults, when you take that first breath and the oxygen level rises, the pressure in the left atria rises, and it slaps it shut. Because it's two valves opened up, and the pressure is greater on the right than on the left. Because why? Because it's getting oxygenated blood from placenta. Placenta is not going to go to the liver. You're going to bypass the liver. So just above the liver, you're going to have a connection which the placenta is leading into. So you're going to bypass the liver. They call that the ductus venosus. And there's one more bypass. If any blood goes from the right ventricle into the lungs, then we want to deviate that and kick it from the pulmonary trunk. From pulmonary arteries, we want to kick it, guys, ready? To the aorta. I'll show you the structure right here. Look at it. Here's the pulmonary trunk.
Is that still for fetal or no?
Yeah, this is fetal. So here, this is, see that right there? It's as an adult, it's the ligamentum arteriosum. But if you look, if any blood goes into, so if it comes into the atria, it moves over in fetus. Then if it does go into the right ventricle and the ventricle kicks it out to the lung, then sure enough, there's a bypass there. That's called the ductus arteriosus. Everybody hear me? So there's 3 fetal bypasses. 1, the ductus venosus. 2, the foramen ovale. 3, ductus arteriosus. The ductus venosus bypasses the liver and puts nutrient-rich blood directly into the atria, or into the inferior vena cava, which then leads into the atria. Did everybody hear me? That's perfect, because if I didn't do that, then the liver would take it first, right? And then you'd have the liver starving the body when the body is at its most, it's at its fastest growth rate. So you don't want the liver starving anybody. So you're going to skip the liver. Liver, sorry, but we're too, this blood flow, this nutrient-rich, oxygen-rich blood coming from placenta, sorry, liver, you're just going to have to wait to get yours. You're not going to be able to touch this first. When you start to digest your own food, then your liver comes online. Separately, it's also responsible for that, remember, for making water-soluble bilirubin, making angiotensinogen, all these other things that it makes, okay? Very important. So the ductus venosus is a bypass for the liver. So it bypasses liver. So placental blood bypasses liver and enters inferior vena cava, IVC. You got me? Inferior vena cava. Enters inferior vena cava. The foramen ovale, well, that will be a right atria to left atria. And this bypasses lungs. And the ductus arteriosus, which will take any blood that gets kicked out from the right ventricle that enters into the pulmonary trunks, will never enter pulmonary arteries. So it'll actually be it'll be the bypass coming from here. And it's going to go straight into what is the aorta. And that bypass is referred to, now you see why, what we wind up doing is we do this. We take the atria, stick them together, take the ventricle, stick them together, guys. Did everybody see what I'm talking about? Look at the heart. The way that I wrote the schematic, I'm doing it through flow, right? And that by writing it through flow, you see that my right atria is down here, and then right ventricle, and then my left atria is here, my left ventricle's there. Yeah? But that's not how it's designed. We got both ventricles together, both atria together. You got me? Look, when I take the cover off, it's a 4-chambered heart. 2 atria, 2 ventricles. So what do we have to do? We got to twist it. Look it up. You see, I'm not lying to you. The heart's all twisted. And sure enough, you know where the heart develops? Up here in the throat. In embryological development. The pharyngeal gill slits is where it first initiates. So it develops here and migrates down into the chest. It pulls the part of the vagus nerve called the recurrent laryngeal, which is responsible for innervation of the voice box. The aorta actually gets hooked on there. So it's very complex. It's really, really, really complex. Because why? Because we become more complex. So our system is really, really basic. Simple capillary tube. You ever understand? Simple squamous epithelium with a basement membrane. That's a simple capillary tube. That's how it starts out. But that's not how it's destined to be. Do you ever understand that? We're going to take that simple squamous capillary and we're going to twist it. We're going to get cardiac muscle to wrap around it. And that's going to be heart. You understand? And then, where blood vessels are, we're going to get smooth muscle to wrap around the simple squamous epithelium of the basement membrane. You got me, guys? And those are going to be veins and arteries. You got me? And where there's no muscle associated with that simple squamous epithelium, with the basement membrane, that's going to be my capillary. You guys, are you listening to me? The tube is a continuous connection. Our cardiovascular system is a continuous connection. Our cardiovascular system is a continuous connection. From within the heart, the inner lining of the heart, is lined with simple squamous epithelium and a basement membrane. It's called the endocardium. The muscle is called the what? The myocardium. And then the outer part, which is on this model, is called the pericardium. Well, sure enough,